Hello, and welcome to C-Suite Secrets. I'm Heather Parsons, your host, a serial entrepreneur, fractional CFO, and a business strategist. I've spent years juggling family life and business, all while helping entrepreneurs scale, optimize cash flow, and build real financial success. On our show, we bring you real conversations with founders, executives, and operators who actually move the needle in their business. No fluff, no filler, just smart strategy, systems that work, and insights that you can put to use in your business right away. With that, let's dive right in. Today, we have Grace Cupat on the show. Grace, welcome. We're happy to have you today.
Thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. For those who may not know a lot about you, I would love it if you could talk a little bit about your background and what led you to become a founder and entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So I started my career quite some time ago, probably about 2 decades ago, originally as a graphic designer, and that ultimately ended up being into engineering. And so most of my career has been in leadership and engineering, mentorship in UX, UI design, and software engineering. And so most of my career has been around the tech industry. And one of the reasons why I ended up going to the role of an entrepreneur is I saw a need in the marketplace where a lot of individuals, regardless of whether or not they're in tech or marketing or whatever it is, a lot of professionals have a tendency to not really have a good, solid way of tracking their career. And what that does cause is that when it comes to having to upskill or having to switch or pivot or finding a new role, or even within their own companies, how to really articulate what it is they do to create that resume or to create that portfolio. And so there was a huge gap in the industry where people tend to create a resume when they're already on fire in a way, they're kind of scrambling because they need to make a change. And so that is the gap that we want to try to fill, is providing an avenue for folks to be able to really track their career and own it and know where they're at. And so that's where we are.
I think that's great. And I think that's a wonderful story. I'd love to dive in a little bit. What I'm hearing you say is you're really trying to focus not on the person who's trying to fill the role, but the job seeker, right? And a
Right,
way
right.
for them to track their skills and really progress their career in the most beneficial way for both their self and the employer. So, what were some of the things that you thought about as you were moving towards this product? How did
Oh,
that impact you personally?
yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, even in my own career, whether I'm job seeking or not, the ability to really know where I'm at. Now, a lot of times I'm working with people that, in fact, I'll give an example. Someone that I worked with who was 11 years tenured in the industry as a software developer, he considered himself as a junior. And even after 11 years, he really didn't know really what his skills were, where he lied. And I'm just like, you have all these skills, but that wasn't just a one-off situation. I've worked with a lot of people who have this imposter syndrome, and myself as well. Even though I've been doing this for 20 years, I still have that struggle. And that's kind of where we wanted to really identify what these skills are based on real projects. So it's not just for the job seeker, it's really for anyone who cares about their career. When they put in a project or a job or a task, for instance, the software will showcase the skills used in that job. And so oftentimes people have a really difficult time articulating what it is that they do on a daily, even though they know what they do, articulating that is a whole different story. And that's kind of where the software, that's where I saw the gap. Because if you can't articulate it, how can you write a proper resume or write a proper promotion that you're wanting, or how can you advocate for yourself if you have a hard time really remembering what you did?
Absolutely. I think everyone can relate to the fact that a year goes by, 2 years goes by, and you don't really think about your resume. So tracking at
Right.
the project level is very interesting. One other question I have for you on that, as everything is starting to incorporate more AI into what we're doing, AI generated resumes. How do you keep that resume authentic while still using some of these tools to streamline and put together your portfolio and resume?
I love that question because right now there is this love-hate relationship with AI. And while we do use AI, we one of the differentiating factors that we do, rather than just dropping your history or resume into ChatGPT and have it match a job description, this is really tailored and using the individual's actual projects and skills identified, plus their career story and personality traits, because we have a behavioral assessment on the site itself that allows that to happen. So it's taking not only their profile, their key achievements, their history, their skills, their projects, and their personality all in one place. So it's not going to, it's going to lessen the hallucination that a lot of us see with AIs today, because it's only using the data set provided by the user. And so it's going to pull and really highlight the best of you without injecting, you know, I've got a government, status somewhere. It's not going to make up that stuff because it's in the data. It's in their data.
That's great. And that's a really good point too, because as we implement more AI tools, fact checking, making sure that it's being honest is something that we're going to have to get better and better at. Because I know it
Absolutely.
tries to be super helpful, but some
Yes.
days it's also very creative.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. It says work for a SWAT team. Well, it's great if you did, but not really if you did not. So that's one of the things that we really wanted to focus on when we were creating this, is how we can bring to the user a really authentic representation of themselves, so that when it's represented in their resume or their portfolio, it's not making things up. Because obviously it wouldn't really be a value to anybody if it did that. And so that's kind of the differentiating factor. I think that certainly you can go to some of these AI bots out there where you can drop that in, but it has to learn you, and it doesn't have your full history. So that's where we want to kind of bring that to the table, while also providing securities, which is super important for us to make sure that what they want protected is always going to be protected. So when you go to LinkedIn, kind of it's all public, whereas this is behind the doors.
That's great. And I like that because, as we try to use all of these tools, making sure they're secure is super important.
Right.
One other question I have for you, around being a founder and running a company. So, what are some of the challenges that you've come across as a new founder and a startup?
Oh my goodness, where to begin with that one? So there's a lot of things that, as you start to learn becoming a founder, the areas in terms of fundraising, or the areas of just something even as simple as what you might think, like trademarking your logo. When you go in there and trademark the logo, it sounds simple enough until you realize, oh, well, you need an attorney. But if you don't have an attorney, what can you do to really get around that? And so we opted not to go with an attorney and just did it ourselves. But it certainly wasn't a learning event. And so what I've learned the most about becoming a founder is that someone once told me, that has resonated with me. It's like success is a bunch of failures going in the same direction. And so long as you keep going in that one direction, you're super hyper focused, you're going to get to where you want to go. And for me and my co-founders have found it very exciting, very rewarding. And I feel as though we're really giving back to the community, something that is needed. And so that to me is really an emotional impact that I have that drives me forward. And so as a founder, I think you're gonna that emotion and that drive is really what makes you go forward.
Absolutely. And something you're saying there about that, having a why behind what you're doing, not just having a business to have a business, is
Right.
what helps people have that staying power and grit when it comes to doing things that aren't the most fun. Like,
Right.
I don't know many tech founders who wanted to learn how to do a trademark or all of the other things that go along with business. It's definitely different for sure.
It is,
So,
yeah.
one other thing, as you continue to build out your business, what are some of the things that you've learned about how to continue to grow and scale your operations without having a large capital influx from a unicorn investor?
That is a great question. I think one of the biggest things for us is because I'm a tech founder and I have a CTO that's also a tech founder. One of the most expensive part of creating a SaaS is actually being able to build it. So this is one thing to come up with the idea, but then building it. So one of the things that we've learned is that being able to really have a hyper focus in what you're building and how you're going to build it has been super crucial for us. And in terms of moving forward from there, how to split your time is also super crucial, because I can go to coding and then I have to put on the marketing hat and then I have to go into the investor cap where I'm trying
Yeah.
to get people to invest and believe in the product. So I think that's just that ability to really um, juggle your time effectively and just realize there's no sleeping involved. When you're a new founder, you just kind of have to keep going and move from there. I'm not sure if that answered your question or if I went on a tangent there, but
No, I think it really did. I think that's exactly what we're looking for. It's great insight and what it's like to really be in the trench and running a business.
right.
Yeah. So, you know, I know as a founder and a CEO, we have to make loads and loads of decisions. So, what are some of the tougher decisions that you've had to make as a founder so far?
Great question. I think one of the hardest decisions to make as a founder is to actually make the decision to be a founder. I think that's the biggest decision and the most scariest one, I think. As far as like trying to really juggle between what you were doing as a full-time, independent person or, working as in a company and then just making the leap of actually becoming a founder and what that all entails. Because it is a mindset and it's definitely a mind change as far as, realizing that you're going from one really smaller aspect of a business to something that's much larger. And so I think that for me is the biggest decision that I've ever made is just deciding to go down the road. I think that's probably, you know, the biggest one.
That's a huge leap of faith for sure, and it's definitely not for everybody, but
No,
I've found that most people who have made that leap have found it extremely rewarding.
yes,
It's a challenge and tough decision to make for sure.
it is.
So, as you're launching your product, how have you helped both people who are using the product to track their skills and companies figure out how to unlock new talent
Oh, great
in
question.
their organization?
Yeah. One of the things, so we're launching the B2C side first. The B2B side comes early part of next year. And so one of the reasons why we wanted to do that is really get that product market fit out there, really understand the market, where the needs are. I've worked with a lot of different individuals that say, what we're using at work isn't really working, how we're tracking our upskilling isn't really working. And so we wanted to start with the users first, really give back something that they just don't have today. It's only used at the company. And so what we want to do for the user to really identify with them is to find out how this can best get them to that next level and how we can best support them for that. And so one of the things we've done is provided like videos and tutorials on how to use the product so that it's more effective. Because the more robust a product is, the more difficult it can be for people to really on board with it and understand it. But once they do it, and so we've actually had a few people say, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing when it comes to the behavioral assessment, because it's the closest that any software's ever done. And so that to me is really rewarding to hear that because I'm like, oh, good, that works. Or when they actually are able to put in a job description and it actually does it accurately for the resume generation, that really helps us to identify that this is working. Or if they want to create a resume portfolio, so that's one of the other things is that we all have our professional roles. We might teach somewhere else. We might, mentor elsewhere. We have these different personas, but it's not exactly something that's easy to put a portfolio up online. It takes a lot of time, and then you have to host it. And so being
Right?
able to provide that is really kind of it's really to shorten the time it takes for us to really get exposed in the areas we want to get exposed in, so that people can really see who we are as individuals, as people who can provide our services for work, or, things of those things.
I like that a lot, and going the portfolio route, I'd like to dive in a little bit more on that. I think it's super powerful, especially as somebody who has been a hiring manager who has tried to find both the right fit for the team and the person with the right amount of skills, right? Because
Right.
really and truly, especially as people advance in their careers, it's really both. It's not either or, it's
Right.
the well-rounded person. So I'd love
Yes.
to hear some more of your thoughts on that as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things about, like, I'll go from the resume to the portfolio. One of the things about the resume is that you're trying to shove your entire career story into a 2-page resume, or even 1 page. You're like,
Right.
you're just like, how does anybody even know? And then now you have to fluff it up. So people are really not sure if what you're actually offering is truly what they're looking for, or you're hitting
Yep.
the wrong spots. So the portfolio is really designed to cater the role to not only the individual, but to the person that's actually viewing it. And so one of the things that we're planning on doing is adding a chat feature in here where an individual can have a one-on-one conversation with their history. So not necessarily with the individual, but actually ask, what did Heather do in terms of this particular project? Does it relate? What was the outcome? So that they can really understand the person before they even have a chance to really talk to them and identify them. And whether that is for their professional role, or whether that's in, their side roles, or what they want to do, it's really that connection before they even connect. That's what we want to try to close that gap there, because it's really time consuming. As a hiring manager,
Yeah.
it's really time consuming. I think for us in the tech industry, it's anywhere between 30 days to 90 days to vet someone out. That's a long time.
It is. And the other part that I always think about is these people who are trying to do that vetting also have a full-time job.
Right.
They're trying to fill a role because they're short on people.
Right.
So spending that much time is definitely not ideal.
No, it's not. And then being able to ask those questions that's not listed in the resume, I mean, that's a huge deal. So we're really excited about rolling that one out down the line, so people can really interact with their history.
I like it. I think that's going to be revolutionary. Definitely love seeing companies like yours that are changing the industry, because I think HR has always been a necessary part of my career, but I think it doesn't really get to the heart of the situation, which is the people involved.
Right, right. It's so true. You just end up becoming a piece of paper with black text.
Right. And that's not what we want.
Right.
We want everybody to feel appreciated and fulfilled in the process.
Absolutely.
So, one other question that I have for you, as somebody who has been running their business for a while, what is one thing from a finance or operations perspective that has moved the needle or changed your business?
From that aspect, it's actually the spending that we are trying to really, because we're running lean, so we
Yeah.
really have to be very careful with our spending. And so technology is typically one of the more expensive areas for a business, especially in a SaaS company. And so running lean has been important for us to do that. So understanding where these pain areas are, and what we can do to actually streamline that as best as possible. So one of the things we're doing is we're using Google Cloud Platform, for instance, to help us identify, and lower the cost. And so for us, it's a strong, powerful suite, but yet we can actually select and choose which ones we want to work with. But then also from a finance standpoint is being able to, as a bootstrap company, knowing where to spend that money, how to spend it, whether it's going to be for marketing, whether it's tech. I think really understanding where that money needs to go to and why, and how you have to actually hold back and say, I really would like to spend money in this particular area to get more investors, but then you have to say, do I really want to spend that much money to get? So it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that most founders really struggle with, especially, I would like to say early on, but I don't think that's the case. I think that's the case regardless of where you're at in business.
Right.
And from my perspective as a CFO, a lot of that stuff comes down to your business case.
Yeah.
I know my friends in tech always hated to hear that whenever they were looking for an investment or looking to make some adjustments in a business.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all trying to get to the end result and keep as much money in our pocket as possible. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's what we've got to do.
Right.
So one final question. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
I would love to know, what's one secret that you wish you would have known as an entrepreneur starting out?
Oh my gosh. What's one secret? I think the one secret that works for me is, I don't even know if it's really a secret. It's that the finding of your own drive. I think that's the secret that I think people really need to find and identify with, and then stick to it. I think that's the secret that I think, I've owned businesses in the past, and the drive was there, but not really as strong as it could have been. So you have to kind of stick to it, at least for me, and that keeps you going during those frustrating days where a code piece is not working, or you can't reach an investor, or something kind of just fails when you go to demo it. You just have to
Right.
fall back on that drive, because that's what drives you forward.
Absolutely. Well, today's conversation has been great. If our listeners want to learn more about what you're doing, use the product, or just get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to connect?
I think the best way to connect is actually, I'm on LinkedIn, so please reach out on there. I tend to answer a lot of people on there for the most part. There are sometimes it's a little hard, so
Yeah,
forgive me if I don't, but I try to. So I think that's the best way, and just visit the site. Tell me what you think.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for listening to C-Suite Secrets. If you have found today's conversation as valuable as I have, be sure to hit that like and follow button and share with another entrepreneur who's building a business. If you want more tips on how to grow your business between episodes, join us on C-Suite Insiders on Facebook. And until next time, keep growing. And remember that you don't have to do this alone.